Okay, 6-speed Honda PYRA main valve body HPPG 11 RT4 number 2-1. As far as these end plugs go, to me they look the same as the other Hondas, but so I put this the right direction. What the heck did I do here? Oh, I got it in the wrong spot. Talking and not thinking. Anyway, the end plugs look the same to me, at least a lot of them. Obviously this one is much smaller, but the medium and the small look the same as the other Hondas, but on the website it says it does not fit this transmission, so I am not going to be the guinea pig. If you want to be the guinea pig, go ahead. This is too damn difficult of a unit to be having to do it again just because the damn end plugs were different. So it's the valve, spring, retainer. Make sure the spring centered up in that bore. Valve with the open end out. Spring. End plug. And retainer. Open end of the valve out. Spring. End plug. Retainer. Open end of the valve out. Spring. Unplug and retainer. Open end of the valve out. Spring. Retainer. Make sure that is centered again. Open end of the valve out. Spring. End plug and retainer. Okay, on this side of the valve body, you don't need to take this out. This is a bleed bolt. You can see there's a screen on each side. There is a spring and check ball inside there. You're going to want to blow air into it. Make sure it only blows one direction. Make sure it's not full of debris. And you don't need to take it out of there. Okay, we're just going to talk about the bolts at the moment. There's 7 of these bolts, and they are inch 400, and they go in those spots right there. And we have one bolt that is 1 inch 800, and I believe it was there. I may be wrong on one of these, but 213 thousandths steel balls. One goes there, one goes there. We have 2 dowel pins, like most Hondas, on every level. This one's no different. And you're going to go there and there. And then on our gears, going to go in just like that. Lines facing towards the separator plate. And you can check your clearance on your gears. I'm going to have to find out what those clearances will be. I'll be on the slides at the end. I'm sure it's like most of them. You got just a couple thousandths here and somewhere around maximum of about 5 on this side over here. So you're just gonna have to get something in there that you can measure that with. That is 4 thousandths, so, and it won't go in at all. Won't even attempt to go in. So it is barely at the very, very top. And it'll barely slide in there, so that should be good. And then get you a flat bar. You can go across your gears here and check your face clearance there. Normally you're only allowed about 1/2 thousandths to 1 thousandths and a half on your face clearance. So, and it's not even attempting to go under there, so should probably be good there. I'll have to find my other. I don't think this goes down any further. No. So I have to find a different gauge for that. But it gives you an idea of how it's done. Servo body RT4. Guess we'll do the PR valve first. Valve goes in. We have an inner spring, a middle spring, outer spring, and then our bolt has a tip on it. That tip has to go inside of here. So when you're putting this in, make damn sure that you're in that groove, and don't tighten anything down with anything until you're positive this bolt's all the way down. Okay, make sure it's all the way up. Then you can take a wrench or a ratchet, tighten that down, and then make sure it's still moving. If it's not, you got a problem. Okay, we have inner spring, outer spring, O-ring on our accumulator. And put the opening of our snap ring away from that notch. Hollow end of the valve out, spring, and retainer. Make sure it's centered. Valve, spring, end plug, retainer, spring, hollow end of the valve in. Make sure it gets around that spring, end plug. And I don't think I mentioned it, but on your end plugs, make sure they're all the way out against the retainer. If they are sitting in, pushed into the bore, and they're not back against that end plug, the valve may not stroke. So keep that in mind. We have an O-ring on our reverse servo, notches on here. Face the detent. Alright, we have a tube that is 390 on the outside and 2" 7/48 on the length. It goes here. Got 2 dowel pins like you did on the other. Here's our separator plate for that. See if we got any numbers. I don't see any. I don't remember exactly where the bolts went. You got 2 that are longest, 1 that's underneath that, 4 that are the same under that, and the shortest one is by itself also. Manual valve body, RT4. You have an inner and outer spring here again. O-ring on your accumulator. Opening away from the opening again. This one's a little bit stouter than that last one. Okay, and I believe it was this way. Alright, we have 2 dowel pins again, our bolts, separator plate. This cooler, they call it a cooler something. Anyway, there's a check valve down inside there, and it goes in that way. But point being, don't try to take that thing out of there, and if it falls out of there, you're supposed to replace this thing. So there's 2 10mm bolts for that. Okay, the stator, there's 2 more bleed bolts here. Here again, you don't have to take these out, but I would make sure that they are blowing free one way, locking the other, and that they're not full of debris. There was a fair amount of metal in this unit, and so far none of it has been in any of those deals. So we have 4 bolts that hold that on to the case. We have 2 dowel pins. Oh, the dowel pins are different. They are 390 thousandths outside and 624 thousandths long. And the bolts are all the same, 3" 232. Okay, there's 3 O-rings on your stator. There's a bearing here. You don't need to take this out. The snap ring is a pain to get out of there. because of the way they make the tips of it. If you want to take it out, make it easier on you, you can make the angle here a little bit more pronounced so you can get in behind there and get that off. In fact, let me go do that. Okay, see, that's a little bit steeper. It should be easier to get in behind it now. If that bearing's bad, you're probably buying the whole thing anyway. And let's see, I believe it was in there this way. You don't want to lube that up. No, I think it was the other way. Yeah, it's the other way. It goes over here. You don't want to lube these O-rings up. I haven't gotten my kit yet, so I'm not too worried about this. I'm going to have to take it back off and do it. You can see where the stator has been hitting on the stop. It's made a groove there, so I'm going to flip this over. It'll be sitting in there this way instead of this way. Alright, that's it for that. Alright, there's really no need to take any of this apart, but in case you happen to get one that's been taken apart, or you for some reason decided to take it apart, this is how it goes back together. There's a snap ring down here. It's just actually what it sits on is its only function. Alright, our spring pops onto here, just like so, facing that way. We have, let's see, how would this go? Go ahead and put this back in there. There's a roller here with the pin, washer, and the snap ring. Alright, then our stop goes in this way. There are different numbers on here, so there's a measurement that'll be, I'm sure it's pretty much the same as it is for all the other Hondas. I'll see though. Come on, get on there. Quit fighting me. Alright, leave your bolt out for the momentary. That way this can turn. And then you're going to put your roll pin in, and it's going to protrude 230 thousandths. Okay, just like that. Now you're going to put your shoulder bolt with your retainer on there. The flat end is going to sit in there just like that. You have to push back on that spring, and you're going to have to also line it up. Okay, there we go. And then we want to bend our tab back over and lock that into place. All right, here's our detent. So sit down in the case, and we'll get to all that once we get it in the transmission. So once we get this in there, let's see how this was sitting. Leave it was just up there, just like that. Okay, and the hollow end of the valve out, spring, and retainer. And center that up. Got the hollow end of the valve out again. Both these valves are the same. The springs are close enough to the same to be the same. Okay, we have 2 dowel pins again. Now this may come on the new solenoid assembly I'm getting. I don't know. But I've got the stuff in the kit, so I'm just going to go ahead and put this on. All the accumulators and the springs are the same. O-ring on here. Inner and outer spring on each one. Springs have to get on those knobs right there. And you got 2 12.10 millimeters go in the ends, and 4 that go in the center. All the bolts on this are 9 foot-pounds. Alright, you can't screw up where the bolts go. Long ones and short ones. Where did my other one go? Right there. Alright, on our tubes, you have filter in each one. Goes in like that. It's going to face down. You got O-rings on your tubes. There is 1A, which is got 3 tubes on it. There are 3 B's, which are double. And let's see, it's only go one way. And then 1C. Okay. And this is what the screen looks like. If your kit does not come with the screens, just clean them out. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and take this solenoid assembly apart, and we're going to see what's in there. Okay, this is the inside of the solenoid assembly. I originally thought that the valves came out this way, so I'm trying to get these end plugs out. They're very tough to come out, so I drilled it and got a puller on it, pulled it out. The valves do not come out that way, so it does you no good to pull this plug out. The valves have to come out the solenoid end, and you just have to uncrimp them. I don't know how good they're going to stay back in there once you get it crimped back in. You just bend this out, work your way around, then you can get a flat blade screwdriver in here and you can work it off. There is an O-ring on each one. The valves are all the same. They're all recessed the same. The end plugs are all recessed the same. Springs are all the same. Pressure sensors are all the same. These two solenoids are the same. So if you needed to scavenge, a different solenoid assembly to make one work, I don't see the point of it here in America. You can just buy the stuff, and by the time you do everything that you need to do, you can just buy the stupid thing. But if you're outside of the country, this might be an option for you to do that. These are recessed just past flush. I don't know how well they're going to stay in there also. After you take them out, you might have to stake them in place. Alright, once you get those in, make sure the springs get down into the recesses of that. I also destroyed this spring trying to get that plug out that way. Not that it matters, this is going in the trash. Make sure the spring gets up in the back of that valve. And then you have an O-ring that goes on each one. Okay, then they go back on. Also, by the way, the black ones are the same and the gray ones are the same. Alright, once you get them back on, you're going to have to re-crimp that. How exactly you're going to get that done, I don't know. Somebody's going to probably have to hold it in, and you're going to have to bend that all back around. Alright, we have the third pressure switch and washer. Yep. This is the third. I believe this is third. One's third, one's sixth. And then the sixth. Yeah, figured that was gonna fall off. And you got the pressure port for each one. See if it says which one is which on there. It's 5mm Allen for this. And I don't see any markings on it. Line pressure sensor and washer, and the pressure port plug and washer. It's 5mm Allen also. And we have line pressure solenoid. And shift solenoids A and B. And 10mm Allens, or 10mm bolts that hold that in. And since it's been a while and I don't remember, I'll put the valve body part of it on here. I think we already did talk about this, but we're going to talk about it again. We have a dowel pin and a dowel pin. Let's see which way this goes. This way, I believe. And then our valve body, 10mm bolts for that, and I guess we might as well measure them. We have an inch 395 there, there, and there. And we have inch 795 along the back. The two black ones here, inch 345. And these are 12-point bolts here. And these are 783 for these four. Alright, that's all there is to this solenoid assembly. Okay, down inside of here is a, let me get the O-rings out of there. Is a sleeve. You got a tube. Nope, goes this way. Got an O-ring, it goes in here. O-ring goes here. Your tube sits on there just like that. You're going to make sure it goes all the way down. There are two notches that this has to line up in. It goes in there just like that. Then you have this bearing sits on top of that. You have the sleeve that has 3 O-rings on it. It has these 2 feet. They have to fit in those 2 notches right there, just like so. I heated it up in the cooker. Got my blind hole puller on it. No, I did not. I used a what did I use? Used a clutch pilot bearing, the snap-on clutch pilot bearing tool on it, and was able to get that out of there. Once you get that in there, this bearing goes on top of here. You got this oil slinger here. This bearing goes this side up. It's got to have to press all this stuff in. You got that oil slinger there, and this bearing. You got this bearing. You got oil slinger here, and this bearing. And then we got 2 5mm Allen plugs here. 2 of them oil bleeds here. Make sure there's no debris in those. And tighten those down. And then we have a magnet. It goes in just like that. Right there. Alright, let me get all this pressed in and then we'll be back. Alright, see if we can get a good view of this. There's an O-ring in there. O-ring there. Go ahead and lube up your tube. Put that on there just like so. Put that in there. Put your bearing on top. Lube up your collar. See if I can get some down in here. Line up your tabs. Alright, then just press your bearing in, and we're done with that part of it. I think I'm gonna maybe do the valve body part of it next. Trying to get some stuff off the bench so I can get something else up there. By the way, I don't know if I mentioned it, but the groove goes up. Let's see if that's a good enough view. Okay, got 2 dowel pins. One there. And come on. One there. Actually 3 dowel pins, one down here. Then we have our gears. Lines down on our driven gear, our shaft. Actually, it's not going down. There are dowel pins in there. Okay. All right, we have inch 805. Inch 393, and I believe all of these in here are the same. Yep, all the rest of them are the same. Alright, 2 dowel pins. Our separator plate. Servo body. Alright, two of these are the filter bolts. Alright, missing a couple bolts there. That's what happens when this stuff sits around just way too long. Let's see. That sits there. And the bolts were 1" 392. This way. Okay, we got two dowel pins here. And our stator sits this way. 12mm bolts there, and those are 3" to 25. And our stop. Okay, two dowel pins here. Our separator plate. Let's see, it goes this way, and then our valve body, and I'm going to go down on there. Okay, let's see, that one not there, there, this one here, this one here, this one here, there, there, and there. Okay, so we got 1" 200 for here and here. We have 1" 2" 182 there and here, and then 3" 760 there and there, and the longest one 4" 550. Okay, these two go to that oil baffle, so we'll start over here. 2" 183, 3" 768, 2" 980, 3" 373, 2" 970, same, and then our last one is 3" 760. Yeah. See how well we can get this on camera. We have our carrier. And we have the small washer with this spider gear. You can see the difference. This goes down here. Then we have our cage, goes in there. I guess we ought to put our spider gears in first. We have a washer on the back side of each, and we'll go ahead and put our pin in to kind of hold everything in place. And then short pins on these other two. Make sure that your holes are facing the right direction. And we put our cage in. Too far. And let's grab. We have these pins that hold those in. Just like that. And we have the cover. Find out where my marks are at. I would recommend that you mark everything before you take it apart. That way it gets right back the way it's supposed to be. Spider gear and washer. I mean, side gear. There's a deep side of your ring gear, faces down, and here again, let me find out where my marks are. This one goes over here. These are 14mm 12 points left-hand threads. Alright, I'm going to press my bearings on. They are different. Races are different. Seals are different. The smaller one Let's see. Yeah, the smaller one goes on this side, and there's the race for it, oil slinger, and the adjustment shim. Those go in the back case, and there's the seal that goes for the case part of it. Then the large one goes into the bell housing. Sits on there. We have a race, oil slinger, the notch has to line up. It goes in the bell housing, like I said, and there's the seal for it. And this retainer goes in the case, and 2 bolts hold that, keep that from coming out. Actually goes this way. Okay, an idler shaft. Alright, I have to go press this on. 2 half-moon keys. The retainer. And snap ring, short end of the taper up. And we got a bearing and a washer. Alright, first gear, low clutch, whatever you want to call it. You have an O-ring in here. O-ring out here. You got a flapper valve. You want to put some fluid on there. Make sure it holds fluid. Then when you push down on it, that it comes through the other side and releases. Lube that up. Lube up your drum. We have a return spring, a retainer. You look on your snap ring, sometimes it's hard to tell. It will have a taper to it. You want the short end of the taper up towards you, not down like that. And we're going to put the opening away from these little nubs right here. Put it over here in the center. Make cushion plate, dish down. And it's going to pop into place. Alternate. Your bottom steel, sometimes where the cushion plate rides on Hondas, it'll eat a groove into it. This one's not done it, so I'm not going to replace it, but that'll help smooth out your shifts on Hondas. Alternate steels and clutches up. No, I do not soak my clutches, but if you feel like you need to, go right ahead. I've never seen a difference one way or the other doing it and not doing it. Snap ring on top. I also get questioned all the time about that brush. Am I not afraid that a bristle's going to come off? Every once in a great while one does. But very rarely. I've been using this brush for 20 years and it's still in great shape. Okay, so we have the gear, we have the bearing, There has been debate. I don't know if that shows up on camera. You can see how this side is kind of rolled. This side is not. There's been debate of which side goes against the gear. Something like 40 years ago, I read an article that said that the rolled side goes against the gear. Now, I've seen it every which way that you can think of, and it does not seem to matter. The question has come up at the seminars, and the guys that are supposed to be in the know have no clue. So I don't think it makes it crap, but that's what I read, and that's what I always do. On the back of the drum here, there's this bearing. It's going to go in the case. Then when this drum goes on the shaft, here's the snap ring for that. Okay, there's really no need to take this off. You might end up breaking that bearing right there, trying to get it off, especially if it's gotten too hot. So put the bearing and the race back the way it was if you do take it off. And then just open this up just enough to get it onto the shaft. Me personally, I would just leave it on there. Okay, you got 5 O-rings. They're all the same. One goes there. There. Okay, on your sealing rings out here, you got to be careful with this type of sealing ring. They break real easy and you'll never know it. And sometimes they just don't fit properly. They go together just like that. So make sure they do go together like that. If these pooch off of here just way outside the groove, I would just reuse the old ones, and that's what I normally do, is just reuse the old ones. These aren't horrible. Like I say, I usually just reuse the old ones and they work just fine. You don't want to open these up very far at all. You can break the back of them. They'll look fine, but they won't seal worth a crap. Go ahead and lube that up. And then our snap ring goes on the back side. Just like so. Fifth gear O-ring here and here, and do the same thing with your flapper valve on this one as you did the other. They're all going to be the same. Lube up your drum. Lube up your piston. Turn spring, retainer, Same thing with the snap ring, short end of the taper up, in between the nubs. Alright, dish down on your cushion plate again. Nobody has any steels for this thing, so what I do in that case is I don't have any from other transmissions that are the same size, at least of this drum. So just take the edge off the back of the steel with some Scotch-Brite and a die grinder. Just buff it off till it gets a little smooth. That'll help with the apply of that. Alternate clutches and steels up. Hopefully at some point somebody will get some steels for this thing. Dealership wants you to buy the whole drums. That's about $1,000 a drum, so that's not feasible. Alright, snap ring there. When we get to the point that we get there, we have gear. Come on now. Get down on there. Probably gonna have to press that on. The gear goes on. Bearing goes on. Gear goes on. Barrel bearing goes in. Flat bearing goes on. And then the collar goes on there. And then our drum slides on. Then we'll do second gear side from the back of that. Go ahead and get that next. Second gear, O-ring and O-ring. Check your flapper valve. Turn spring, retainer, short end of the taper up, opening between the nubs. And cushion down. Same way with this steel, polish the bottom of it with some Scotch-Brite and die grinder. That'll help that cushion plate slide a little easier, soften up your shift. Alright, when we go into the shaft there, we have flat bearing, barrel bearing, and the collar. And our gear is going to sit on top. Bearing is going to sit on that. Our bearing here, 8mm Allen, and that's, I think that might have been left hand. No, it's right hand thread on that one, and that holds that onto the shaft. Alright, main shaft, we have a bearing here and snap ring, short end of the taper out. There's really no need to take this off. There's 4 sealing rings here. They go together just like those others. just like so. Alright, this gear does come off. It did not want to come off easily, so I wasn't going to make it. There's also a race for the other gear that's got to be pressed onto here. There is a snap ring you have to take out to get the bearing out. You're not going to be taking all that apart. If it's bad, you're going to be replacing everything. Snap rings down in there. There's another race on the other side that's just like that race right there. This is going to have to be pressed back on there. And then there's 3 sealing rings here for our clutch drum. I mean sealing rings, O-rings. Alright, now we'll press this back on. Okay, 6th clutch, just like all the others. Yep, that O-ring is not right. Alright, our O-rings are not right. Alright, lube that up. Return spring, retainer, short end of the taper up in between the nubs. Alright, cushion plates down again. Alternate, steels and clutches. Pressure plate and snap ring. Now I'll say this, on the kit that I got, it said it was for a PYRA. Apparently, I think PYRA is different than most of them, because these clutches are a different diameter. They're 3 inches, or I'll put it in the video somewhere. Well, actually, let's just measure them, because 3rd and 6th are the same on this, and they were wrong. 5 inches 20 thousandths on the outside, and the larger ones are, or the ones that came in the kit, are 5 inch 330. So the clutches were different. Also the seals for the drum was different. The inside and the outside both were wrong. So you need to check that before you go start rebuilding your unit. Alright, just like the others, O-ring, check flapper valve, lube drum, return spring, a retainer, short end of the taper up, in between the nubs. Alright, cushion dish down, alternate clutches and steels. Alright, our main shaft, 3 O-rings. Lube that up. Our drum goes on here. We may be putting this on after the fact, but this is how it goes together. Just like that. We have a collar, flat bearing, barrel bearing. Okay, come on. Don't be like that. May have to go press this on. Anyway, that goes on, then our gear goes on, and our flat bearing out here. Then you put the bearing on. You measure the clearance in between the gear and the drum here. If you didn't change anything, I mean, the collar and the bearing is where you measure the clearance. If you didn't change anything, it shouldn't have changed. Okay, we have a flat bearing, cage bearing, our gear goes on, and when we get to that point in the next part, the 2 O-rings go in those spots right there. That's going to be covered up. You're not going to be able to see it so well. In fact, maybe I should go ahead and get a picture of that. And go ahead and lube these up. It'll be easier now than it will be after it's on there. Okay. Then we have another flat bearing. And we have the collar. This side's going to face down. These 2 tabs have to fit in those notches. Two half-moon keys. A retainer. Short end of the taper of our snap ring up. Two bearings. Gear with this side up. The hub with this side down, and that has to be pressed in. Alright, 4th clutch. Same way on this piston as all the others. O-rings and the flapper valve. Return spring, retainer, short end of the taper up. Alright, I found this steel that's just a few thousandths smaller, dish down, and it's going to pop into place. I'm going to see how my clearance comes out. That's pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and use that steel. Okay, on our tube, there's 2 O-rings. You got that end and you got that end. This end goes in. And I'll stay up there. And we got a snap ring, short end of the taper out towards you. Just like so. And then there's 2 sealing rings that go out here. They go together just like those others. There's the 2 O-rings we replaced earlier. And we put our drum on. Alright, then we have a snap ring that goes on the back, short end of the taper out towards you. Alright, counter shaft. The sprag has a lip on it like that. It's going to face down into the gear. And you can't get it separate from the gear, so if it's bad, you're going to have to buy the whole thing. And it is a pain to get it out of there. It goes in a whole hell of a lot easier than it comes out. This didn't want to press off, so I wasn't going to go through a whole lot of trouble to get it off. There's really no need to take it off. So you got your counter shaft, you got your park gear, needle bearing. Our sprag assembly goes on. Going to turn counterclockwise, lock clockwise. Our gear, this side is going to face down. And I'm going to, more than likely, nope, there it goes. We have the thrust washer, goes on, collar, shim, it's a selective shim, and then our gear is going to go on. Then our bearing is going to go on, and our left-handed bolt is going to go hold all that on. Let's see. There we go. Alright, here's our tab, faces down. Here's our race. Go ahead and lube this up a little bit. Might slide a little easier. This one here came out easy. It's the one that goes up into the rear case that was the pain. It did not want to come out. Even heating it up, it did not want to come out. Here's our retainer and the two 10mm bolts. Okay, we have our bearing. We have a dowel pin. Have a dowel pin. Our gasket, you probably really want to leave that off for right now. Okay, put our park pawl in. Put our linkage in. We have our spring. Make sure your linkage gets on that pin right there. And our detent is going to face down. I'm sorry, going to face up. And then you got to hook the spring around that notch right there. And make sure we are working. And your park pawl goes in. Okay. Put these two shafts in. And while we're here, let's go ahead and make sure park works. Don't worry about everything rubbing because everything's going to get pulled up. Alright, take this back out of park. Put your idler gear in. Put your main shaft in. Drum on. Collar. Bearing. Gear. Bearing. And gear. Alright, we have two tubes. Let me figure out which one goes in first. I believe it would be this one. You have an O-ring on each one. On each end. Beam. Okay, guess we'll measure them. Although, if you kept them with it, you shouldn't be able to screw it up. The black one, and it's 3" 9/45, goes over here. This one is 4" 140, and the one over there is 1" 400, pretty close to it anyway. Alright, now our tube can go in. Go ahead and lock that down. Okay, we got an O-ring on our filter. Lube that up. And we got 2 bolts. (1" 200. Probably should have put that on before that fork. Okay, need to press this bearing onto here and tighten that down. 8mm Allen. Press this bearing onto here. 12mm Allen, left-hand threads. Tighten that all down. I'll get you torque specs on that. I'm going to have to move the camera because the camera's right in the way. I dropped this case down. You are going to have to open the snap ring up as you're putting the case down for this bearing right here. Okay, here's some of the parts that are in the case, the rear case. Of course, the nut and the washer is going to go on the shafts. that go on these two bearings that stay in the case. One, they tell you need to release the snap rings and let the bearing come out of the snap ring. For these two, I don't know, because they're not going to come out. This shim right here goes in the back of the case, and it's for one of the shafts. If you haven't changed anything, this shouldn't change, but we'll go through how you determine what this needs to be. Here's the other snap ring that you do have to release to get the case half off. The idler gear, this did not want to come off. I think it's threaded on there with this, and I wasn't going to try to take it out. There's a bearing here. There's also another bearing that's still in the case that did not want to come out, so I was not going to force it out. I'm going to show you where this all goes and the way I have it set up, because I got the cases in my way here, plus the other parts of the drums that I'm still waiting for the stuff for. I don't have room on my bench to put the camera and show you where it all goes. Okay. Hopefully getting down in there. Okay, the differential shim or oil slinger goes in right there. Then the race, in the shim, oil slinger, shim, race. Damn, I don't know why I can't talk today. This bearing here goes up here for the linkage. This snap ring here goes into the case right here. Well, get in there. Alright, it goes in there. This is the snap ring for the bigger bearing. This is the snap ring for the smaller bearing. The idler sits in here. $14mm for that. Okay, this bearing goes in this hole this way, so I'm going to bring it in from the outside and put it in, but it sits with the groove to the outside. This one does the same thing, and here is that shim, and it just sits in the case. There's no groove or anything for it. It just sits there. Alright, let me get this all put in, and hopefully the parts show up and we can get our drums finished up. Alright, quickly before the battery runs out, I forgot to remind about the measurements. So you really need these tubes out of here because you need a flat bar to go across here. And you're going to sit on top of that bearing, and you're going to measure from your bar to your gasket. Make sure the gasket's on there. And then also on this one here, you're going to do the same thing. Put the bar on top of the bearing. Make sure your gasket's on there. You're going to measure. You can do it with a pair of calipers if you got big enough pair. You can measure it from there, make sure it's flat. Take that measurement, subtract this measurement here, and then according to however tall that measurement is what shim you need here. And then also it is gives you the measurement you need for the shim in there. Like I said, if you haven't changed anything, nothing should change. Okay, so you do have to spread the snap ring out, and you tap the case down, follows down, and then you want to make damn sure that that bearing is in that, the snap ring is in the groove of that bearing, and it does need to come up a little bit. So we're going to go ahead and get the case down. It's down all the way. And then we may need to bring these shafts up. See if we can get that to bring it up. Not wanting to. Let's see, maybe we can get a heel bar. Well, no, that ain't gonna work because we're gonna be right against the gear. We'll be pushing against ourselves. There we go. Okay, case bolts. We got two that are 4-inch 190. And one's gonna go there. The other's gonna go here. We got two. Let's see, we got one. It's 3-inch 505. Goes there. We got two and our 3-inch 110 there and there. We got four that are 2-inch 328. Must go there. And we got four that are 1-inch 940. There and there. There and there. Alright, let's go over here. Yep, I forgot these two. So I gotta add that to them. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 that are 1-inch 857. So there. Oh, I got another one down here. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So there. There. And there. turd where you go. Right there. And we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of these. And the bracket goes there. That goes there, there. There. The longest one is 3-inch 230. It goes there. The other one goes there. Alright, we have the washers. They have an X on them. That faces up. Alright, stake those in place. Alright, you have an O-ring on the cover. This hole has to line up with the tube. All these bolts on the back are the same size, so they are 993 thousandths. Alright, temp sensor. Bolt is 930 thousandths. Alright, you have banjo bolt, washer on each side. You have a 10mm bolt, 770 thousandths. Holds that on right there. 17 millimeter on that. Make sure I tighten that since it got interrupted. All right. Let's see how we're turning that here. All right, looks good. I should have done the linkage seal while I had it up. Pressure sensor with the washer. And pressure sensor with the washer. Pressure sensor with the washer. Yeah. These are the oil pressure check ports. There's another one over here. There's some more on the other side. Yeah, the washer on the fill plug. And go ahead and leave that loose. We have the vent cap. Alright, we have where's my mark? Speed sensor with the O-ring. Speed sensor with an O-ring. And these are the same, but I did mark them where they came out of. A shift solenoid with the 3 O-rings. Alright, our bolts for that, 930 thousandths. And this one is 770 thousandths. Okay, we have the banjo bolt, 2 washers, and let's see, how did this thing sit on there? Yeah, I got that backwards. It sits on there like that. And the 10 millimeter here, 770 thousandths. 17mm again on the banjo bolt. We have the collar, the O-ring, $770,000. Okay, gasket for solenoid assembly, and that is not right. There we go. And tell me how stupid that is. They put all the tubes in except for one set. And like I said, they do have screens on them, so make sure the screen is down. Okay. And all the bolts are the same. They are 1" 395. Our filler tube. Since this has got this tube, I think I'm going to go ahead and tighten down the fill plug over here, because I'll probably just fill it up here. $770,000 on that bolt. While I got it like this, let's go ahead and talk about this. Normally I do this first. This bearing that goes in here, make sure it's all the way back, and once it's back, Alright, once it's back, make sure that relief hole is open and it's not blocking that hole. And once you're positive it's all the way back, I stake it in place. Sonex makes a shim that you can put on the torque converter. And it'll help keep that pushed back. Also on your front seals, look and make sure that the directional arrows, sometimes there's an arrow on it. If there's no arrow on it, make sure that the arrow is going the same way. But if there's not an arrow, there are lines right here. Make sure that those lines are going the same direction, as if they're not, it will leak. Get this around here where I can see, and let's get this bracket on there. Okay, they kept it on the vehicle, but on this bracket there's an auxiliary filter that, let's see how it sits on there. There's two lines that go on here, and they can put it on out there, but it sits in that bracket right there. And see if we can see the part number, 25430-PLR-003. Okay, right here. Here's a linkage seal. This side goes down. Lube that up really, really well, inside and out. Make sure it's started up around the edge of that shaft. If need be, get you a screwdriver. Make sure it's not rolled. Got the neutral switch. And line this thing up in neutral. You can use a feeler gauge to do this. You want it to be the same width as this notch that's in the switch, and then make sure everything is lined up. Actually, I guess we need to put this one goes on the inside. I should have noticed that. We got our linkage. And we got a shoulder bolt, and the lock is going to sit on there. Just like so. And I think that's upside down. Bend the lock ring over. Now put your neutral switch on. Make sure it's all lined up. All right. Only last thing to talk about is there is an O-ring that goes on your torque converter. A lot of torque converter builders already put them on there, so it may already be on your converter, but they do give you one in the kit.